Hey guys, I have the latest Tom Ford Eye and Cheek palette here. It is called Raw Desire. I believe it is a Bloomingdale's exclusive. Bloomingdale's is celebrating an anniversary, and so I think they got this exclusively here in the US. And here's a close-up of the packaging, and it's like a matte white packaging all over. And I have one of his older Soleil eye and cheek palettes here, and I don't mind like a monochromatic look, but I think in the white, it just kind of looks like cheap plastic. So I think I prefer the older kind with like the gold framing and the gold accents. It just looks a little bit more luxurious, a little bit more chic. And this also has the TF logo on the top. This does not. So I generally prefer this one over the new one. Weight-wise and everything, it feels pretty much the same. It just feels a little bit different in the hand because I think of the matte finish here. So here's a close look of the products on the inside. So we have a blush, 4 eyeshadows, and then what I'm assuming is a highlight, but it doesn't look very shiny and it doesn't look very metallic. So maybe this is just like a brightening kind of powder. We'll see. Here are some swatches of the 6 products in here. What I will say is when I, finger swatch these, the formula feels very, very dense. It feels like slightly creamy, but almost like clay-like. So there's like a real kind of like thickness to it. So I'm very curious to see how this is actually going to perform on my face. I have found that powders that are thick feeling, even though they're kind of creamy, they don't tend to blend very well. They tend to be very grippy on the skin. So anyway, we're just gonna jump right in. I have foundation, concealer, and powder down. I do have my brows in. I have a little lip balm on because my lips were dry. And that's it. So we're gonna jump right into this. I don't have any bronzer down because I wanted to see this blush shade kind of all on its own. So I'm going to use my Refer number 5 brush. This is one of my favorite blush brushes. I'm going to go into the blush here. And there are no shade names for the individual products in here, just Raw Desire for the whole palette. And these do seem like a baked gelée product. They're just different than the baked gelée eyeshadows from like the New Dip or the Honeymoon. Those have a real sort of like sheer veil to them, and the feel to them is very different. This one definitely feels more like that peach quad that came out, the bitter peach quad. It came in like the bitter peach packaging and everything. I personally did not like that quad, mainly because the colors turned out to be so orange. The formula, not my favorite. So we'll see. I'm trying to keep an open mind. So picking up a little bit of this blush on this brush, and this is a natural hair brush, and I am finding it not difficult, but I have to run my brush over this a few times. There's like 0 kick up. So that's like how dense this formula is. Just gonna brush some onto my cheeks here. Yeah, it's interesting. I just can't get that much product. If I did that any kind of like powder blush or even a baked type of blush that wasn't so thick, there would be kick up everywhere. There'd be a ton of product on the tip of this brush, but there really isn't much. So it is a very dense formula. And again, I'm using a natural hair brush, which is very grippy and picks up product much more easily than a synthetic haired brush. So I wouldn't suggest using a synthetic haired brush on here. I think you're just gonna end up with hard pan, just trying to get some of the product up. There's the blush. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. I just, you know what? I'm just not impressed right now. The shade is very ordinary. Takes a little bit of elbow grease to get some of the product up. Is there any particular kind of beautiful skin enhancing effects on the blush? Not really. It feels very mediocre right now. Okay, let's move on to the eyeshadows. Actually, no, let's move on to this powder here. Sorry, I almost missed the whole highlight situation. So again, this doesn't feel like a normal highlight. It definitely didn't swatch like, and when I say normal highlight, I mean one that's like metallic or it has a sheen or just something to kind of bounce the light off of. This seems like it doesn't have those things. Maybe it's just very, very subtle. So let me find the proper brush. Again, I'm going to stick with natural haired brushes for this particular formula. And I'm grabbing Sonia G's. This is what she calls a base brush, but because it has like a slightly fan shape to it and it is very, very dense, I feel like this is going to be a good brush for this product. So I'm going to go in, pick up a bit of the product there. I think you can see it on the tips of the bristles, and just see how this works as a highlight. Well, it doesn't do much in terms of highlight. Hold on, let me just see if I can even see it on my skin here. And you know what? It actually comes off, I'm gonna zoom in here. I don't know if you guys can see it like right here. It almost looks a little peachy. I feel like maybe these are two blushes, at least for my skin tone. Let me preface by saying that for my skin tone, because obviously if you have a deeper skin tone, this could be a beautiful highlight for you. But for me, I feel like this could possibly be a blush because it has a real like kind of peachy tone to it. I'm just gonna put on the apples of my cheeks here. It actually enhances that other blush quite nicely. Okay, so if you have a very pale skin tone like me, I would say these are two blushes versus this being a highlight. Oh, interesting. This actually reminds me of, shade-wise, not formula at all. The shade reminds me of a Laura Mercier blush. I think maybe ginger. Anyway, there is a blush and it looks light in the pan, and I always think like, oh, that's just not going to show up on my face. But it does. It kind of gives off like a really beautiful, like light kind of peachiness, like a brightening kind of blush. And this does something similar. All right, after trying two products in here, still not terribly impressed, but let's move on to the eyeshadows. All right, sticking with some very grippy natural haired bristles. This is an Isom brush, W25. And I'm gonna go into this light matte shade here. The only product in here with any amount of sheen is this eyeshadow. By the way, you probably could see that in the swatches, but I just wanna call that out. It is a very, very similar shade to the skin on my eyelids, so you can't really see it. All right, let me move on. Let me move on to this shade down here. I'm gonna use the same brush, and I really feel like I'm grinding my brush into these pans. I don't like doing that. Wow. Now you guys have heard me say, like, I don't need shadows that are overly pigmented. I don't like having to be like super careful when I apply my eyeshadow, but this is taking it too far. There's like such a faint whisper of this eyeshadow, and I'm really digging this brush in there. I'm gonna try a different brush. Let's just see. I'm gonna try the Refer number 12 brush, and this is like a domed, pretty dense kind of brush. And going into that shadow, I am having better luck with this particular brush. So let me actually kind of start fresh on this side and see exactly how much pigment we're getting here. Nope. Not much. I'm really grinding my brush in here too. Well, I guess the good news is these do build. I feel like once I get two pretty heavy layers on here, you start to see some of the payoff. That's too much. Wow. This is so disappointing because I love Tom Ford eyeshadows in general. Even just the straight up pressed powders. Those are really, really beautiful. I almost wish they just went with that instead of this really kind of terrible baked formula. These are just too, I don't know, too hard. Yeah, the formula is just off. I'm going into the deeper shade here and just seeing if I can get that to show up better. But again, because I'm so pale, like it would have to have zero pigmentation for it to not show up on my lids. But the amount of product I'm picking up and the amount of effort I'm going into each shadow, like just really getting in there, there should be a lot more going on here. They're not blending that well either. Okay, I mean, you know, I feel like I'm making it work, but that's a lot of effort. And again, it's unremarkable. Like the actual color story and like the look that I'm getting, I'm not like, woo, that's really pretty. No. All right. Maybe this metallic shade will bring it home. I'm going to use my finger actually and just see if that is better. That's okay. You know, we get a little bit of shimmer there. I wish, they used their original baked gelée formula. They just have this gauzy, like sheer veil effect and like look to them, where this is just kind of blah. It's just like a plain kind of metallic shade. Yeah, just nothing terribly special, unfortunately. Oh wow, what a letdown. What a letdown. I mean, if you did pick this up, I do think, you can make it work. I just think definitely use natural hair brushes. Be prepared to like kind of get in there. And if you had a different experience than me, definitely let us know down below in the comments section. I would like to know your experience with this, if it was the same as mine, or if you just love it, you had a great experience with it, please share with us. All right, enough. Let me finish up my makeup look and I'll be right back. All right, here is my final look. I will leave a listing of everything that I have on my face down below in my description box, including the Tom Ford eye and cheek palette. So again, overall, I feel like I like my look. I don't feel like I have to wash my face off before I go out or anything. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's a terrible palette. I just think it's a little bit difficult to use. I feel like the color story is a little bit mundane. And when it comes to Tom Ford, I really, really enjoy most of his eyeshadow formulas. And this particular eyeshadow formula, whatever it is that they're doing, it's not an improvement. I think it's much worse than his previous baked eyeshadow formula, his pressed eyeshadows. Those all perform really, really well. This one is just blasé. It's unremarkable. It's fairly boring. It's a little bit difficult to work with. So I'm unimpressed with this particular eye and cheek palette. And I prefer the old packaging to their face palettes. So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Let me know down below in the comment section. Again, if you have this, if you really enjoy it, if you don't enjoy it, whatever your thoughts are on this, I would love to hear from you. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.